Hi everyone, this is Larilyn back again today on the channel with a new sewing project. So if you watched my last video, it was regarding my upcoming hip replacement. Yes guys, I'm having to have a total hip replacement. But long story short, the video was basically focusing on the projects that I'll be sewing. So today, this is probably project number 3. What I have behind me here, just little lazy dresses is what I'm calling it, loungewear. I've got this little linen dress here just to wear around the house to be cute and comfy. And the back just has a simple little button closure in the back, just a keyhole opening. So just A-line, very simple, very straightforward. It comes a little bit above the knee, something that I could easily, again, like I said, get up and go. And this one, same little A-line style dress. Might use this one as a nightgown primarily. I don't think it could really be used to go out much, but look at that cute little detail in the back. It's a little cowl neck drape line. I altered the pattern to do the cowl in the back. If you watched my other video from 2 weeks ago, I actually did a little A-line dress, but I did the cowl in the front and shared the details of how I did that with the pattern modification and the cutting of the fabric, and just kept the little simple V in the front. This one's a little bit longer. It probably goes about maybe 3 to 4 inches below the knee, but just working on something that's just really simple and comfortable. So what I have today, I'm using my knit bodice block or knit bodice sloper. So I have the front, I have the back, and I also have the sleeves. As I've said before, rarely do I purchase commercial patterns anymore. I know that McCall's has a sale this week at Hobby Lobby, so I may take a spin over there just to see if there's anything nice. I'm always looking for a good jacket, pattern. My daughter also loves to give me projects now as well, so I may have to sew something up for her before I go out for this surgery, which is a lengthy recovery. I plan to kind of share my progress on the channel, since I'll be relearning to walk as well with my PT. So not really looking forward to it, but it's something I have to do. So what I'm doing now, and I have the back knit bodice block. I've got everything laid out, just 3 simple pattern pieces, and I'm going to use this to actually make a t-shirt. I'm probably just going to add like probably 1 centimeter to the side seam here. Centimeter. I say centimeter. And I have it cut to the length of my hip, and I'll probably do just like a 1-inch hem from that. So I'm just going to cut these pattern pieces out and lay everything out to show you how I do a simple t-shirt from my slopers. Okay, so here's a front view of my tee. Looking at it, I'm thinking I probably went ahead and I added an additional 1/2 inch depth to the neckline, which I probably should not have, but you know, it's loungewear, so it is what it is. Just have to make sure when I add up the circumference of the front and the back that my neckband matches to be able to cinch it so it's nice and snug. But what I've added here is just a little cute pocket detail, just the same floral woven fabric that I'm using for the lounge pants, just to give a little matching detail here. So I just marked out where I'd like it to be, a little bit above the bust area here, and maybe it'll hold cell phone, maybe it'll hold some notes, who knows. I just thought it was cute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch down at just probably that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Maybe that's close to about, yeah, I guess that's about 1/4 along here, along the bottom and up the top, and again just leaving the open for a pocket. So I'll go to the sewing machine for that. Okay, so I have my pocket lined up. I have that 1/4 inch detail, and I'm just going to stitch actually along the initial stitch line here. So that's about 1/4 inch. I'm just going to move those pins out of the way as I stitch. All right, and leave needle down. I'm going to rotate and just along the bottom. And it just gives a little decorative top stitch. I think my machine is needing some oil here, guys. It lets me know by making this weird sound Any of you sew with the 7 series Berninas, it kind of gets a little thirsty, lets you know it's time to oil it. It's that weird sound it makes. I'm going to back stitch a little bit. And I've got my top stitch detail here, just to kind of let you see what that looks like, and make sure I back stitch at the pockets because those are the areas that get a lot of stress. So I think it's cute, you know, small, probably about 4 inches wide. Initially I cut it about 5 inches on each side to allow for the seam allowance, but I think it's coming out cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay it out on the fabric cutting table and get to pinning the front to the back. It's real simple, guys. Okay guys, so since this is a jersey fabric, I've already switched to the jersey stretch needle, and I'm going to switch from a straight stitch to a zigzag. But before I do that, you've probably seen other videos on the channel if you've been with me a while. I use the Creative Consultant on the Bernina model, and basically the Creative Consultant lets you choose from different types of fabric. So it's set on woven because I was initially sewing a woven fabric, but you have the different options of various knits here. So if you're doing a pocket, you know, or I think that could be jean. I think that's jeans right here, the symbol of that pocket. If you're doing, you know, piled fabric like fur, and again, your different types of knits. So it's not super stretchy. So I will go ahead and just pick the middle grade of it. Different types of stitches if I want to do a straight stitch, you know, versus a zigzag versus a buttonhole, you know, a zipper, you decorative, you have those options, but I'm gonna just go with a zigzag stitch here. And it gives me the type of needle that I should use, the type of fabric that's recommended. For this particular one, it's jersey, so it's just a regular poly cotton fabric that I'm using. It's showing the actual sewing foot that's here, and the zigzag stitch. So I'm gonna hit OK for that, and it presets the tension, you know, for me, the pressure foot pressure. It switches to the zigzag stitch. That's the one that I was gonna use here, and everything it's preset for the best sewing. So what I'm gonna do is lower the presser foot here, and I'm gonna stitch across with the zigzag foot. And you know, I did not oil this machine in between after the last time it did that, and I get these weird gear models that show up here with this machine. That's the thing that gets on my nerves the most with this machine. You know, I don't have a whole lot of qualms about it, but there is another presser foot, not presser foot, but there's another, what's it called? Another stitch plate. Yeah, there's another stitch plate that you could use where you won't get your jersey pulling or your cotton fabrics pulling from the bottom. So what you can do is purchase that. Offhand, I don't know the name of it. I just haven't gotten it yet. But there's so many bells and whistles that come with this machine. I have another stitch plate that I rarely use. But for finer fabrics, your silks and things like that, jerseys, it's recommended that you use that presser foot so that your fabric doesn't feed down into it. So just wanted to troubleshoot that on camera for you to be able to see how to fix it if you get those bird's nests down there. So let's try this again. And one thing with jersey, I like to pre-sew my seams before I finish them off with my serger. So you might be wondering why I go through all of this. I usually finish my seam off first, and then I go ahead and use my serger. So some of you may just serge directly, but you know, I don't. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this other side, and then I'm gonna move back to the table and show you what I do with the, how I put those sleeves in. Okay, so for visualization and orientation purposes, this is the front of my tee. This is the back side of the tee over here. And you can actually see where their armholes meet here. So what I have is the actual, the sleeve part that's cut out right? And I have right sides together. So I've pinned that one armhole over here. And on this side, I have my notch. And of course the armhole for the front, I have notches there. That one notch, I'm gonna match up to the notch on the sleeve. So I'm gonna start at the shoulder here. And I'm gonna pin that notch to kind of hold that part into place. And then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna find the notch on the shirt with the notch here on the sleeve. And I'm gonna line that up right here to hold that position. And then I'm gonna move over to the other side and pin the bottom of the armhole here to the sleeve, and then matching up the notch here. This should be a double notch usually for the back of your sleeves. So once I have all of that pinned, I'm then going to go back in and pretty much, because jersey's so stretchy, I like to use a lot of pins. I'm going to go ahead and probably put another 2 or 3 pins there, another 2 or 3 pins to hold the excess fabric pieces together here of the sleeve and the tee. Same thing here and between the other 2 notches. And I'll come back and show you that. Okay, so I have the sleeve right sides together with the front and back portions as I just showed you on the video, and I have multiple pins all the way around. So I'm gonna keep my zigzag stitch, and you may be wondering why is she using white thread on black, so you can see it. Basically, it's not for someone else, it's making this for myself. So I don't really care about that. But since you're taking your time watching my video, make sure you hit that like button. I sure would appreciate it. Comment anything you'd like me to know, you'd like to share, you maybe would like to see at some point on the channel. And watch as I go ahead and stitch this 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and continue with my serger after this process. So you guys may just use your serger, you know, directly, because it does create, you know, a stitch depending on if you're using the 3 needle versus the, you know, the 4 needle serger. But I simply just use the 3 needle function of it the majority of the time. And you know, I'm not like super well versed on sergers. You know, I use them just to give clean finishes to the garments, and when I'm strictly just sewing like a jersey fabric. And you just want to make sure you're kind of stretching a little bit as you go. It's okay to do that. You don't have to stretch too much. It is the armhole. And just keep moving those pins as you stitch around. I could have done a fancy French seam, but you know, it's loungewear, so it doesn't matter. Alright, let's see what this looks like. So this is the front here of my long sleeve tee. Everything looks nice and neat, no puckering of that sleeve all around, and that's the back portion of it as well. So the only thing I have to do now is just close up that arm seam that you see here, and once that arm seam is closed, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, then work on my neckband, which is self-drafted as well. I'm not using a commercial pattern, guys, just putting this together for little old me, and finish the hem off and let you see what it looks like. Okay, so closing up the side seams and the sleeves, I have pinned from the bottom of the bodices front to back all along up to the armhole, and then I've continued with the sleeve. So you can actually see my shape of my long sleeve tee. It's actually coming together. So I'm just going to stitch the same zigzag stitch 1/2 inch from the bottom all the way to the top. I get around my armhole, I like to go back and forth because that's an area of a lot of tension. So I go back once more and continue. And it looks like it's out of thread. Maybe it's not out of thread, but I don't have that much more to go. So it's only this part. So let me check that. And yes, guys, it's out of thread. So that's the big jumbo bobbin that it comes with. I know some of the series, 7 series machines, they do have an indicator when the bobbin thread is running out. The only indicator that I have that I'm aware of is when the top thread is running out, because it did not give me any warning. So this is where I wind the bobbin. Press that on top. And let's go ahead and cut our existing thread here. Cut that. And grabbing the edge of my thread spool here, I just follow the numbers. So this is the little disc that the thread goes around. That's just what, clockwise. And then I come back and then I follow it again clockwise here. Do that a couple times. Press that over and it does all the winding of the bobbin for me at this little part here. I know with this particular machine, there's a lot of people that tell you to make sure you don't accidentally push this over because it makes such a weird noise and it freaks people out because you're thinking there's something wrong with the motor or something wrong with the machine. But I do know that it's probably time to get it serviced because it's coming up on a year since I've purchased this one. And I drove all the way to Chattanooga, Tennessee to actually get it serviced because our local people here, this company, not Murfreesboro, another little suburb outside of Nashville, they are were the only ones at the time, but their attitude was so horrible. And I heard horrible things about their customer service too. So I believed it because I was a victim of it myself. So I've never given them a nickel. But anyway, the automatic needle threader is great with this machine. It works, 95% of the time. Unlike my Juki, that was the one thing that I had qualms about the machine. It was not an industrial Juki. I do have an industrial Juki, but I'm referring to my HZL F600, one of the first machines that I bought. It's pretty heavy duty. I could sew vinyl with it with a Teflon foot. I was able to sew multiple layers of, cotton. I could sew a whole jean outfit, on it. So what I do to put this bobbin back in, but anyway, as I was saying, I probably have to drive to Chattanooga if this new company, I think they've been bought out. If they have been bought out, I will probably go ahead and try the new company out to have it serviced because it's a 30-minute drive as opposed to an hour and a half away. But, if folks are not friendly, I don't beg them to take my money. So here we go. This is the bobbin case here. And with this machine, of course, the little shiny part is what you want to put down. And you just follow the guides. And then you kind of go behind that little thread guide there, and that pops itself in. Right? Yep, that pops itself in. And then we just put this back in here. And then it winds around, it cuts. And that's pretty much it. So what I have to do now, let's see if it'll cooperate. And let's finish this zigzag seam so we can move on to the other sleeve, close up the side seam, and move on to the serger to finish it out and hemming. And I cut. Okay, so I've gotten both of the sleeves sewn in, have the pocket done. I have the neckband. Now, if you guys remember, this was from a sloper. Everything is from a sloper, just kind of self-drafted. There's no pattern instructions that I'm following, so bear with me. So basically, I've measured, got my camera falling there, give me a minute. So, as I was saying, I'm not following a pattern without instructions. I'm just going by basically my personal measurements. So I have the neckband just cut. It's just a tube that I've cut here, and I've stitched the back portions of it together back here, and I've marked center back. So I have the neckband, I have right sides together of the neckband to the actual T, have it pinned all around. So it's really a tube that you're looking at here. So my plan is just to kind of base this neckband on, just to test the fit. It should fit. And then once it's basted on, I'm just gonna serge around it, finish all the edges inside and work on the hems. And then I'm gonna just basically flip the rest of this over the seam and stitch it in. And I'll probably use the serger to finish that off as well. So if you guys have a different way of doing it, welcome to share with me. But this is, basically how I do it without following a pattern. Okay guys, so I have a second option. So I've stitched everything on with just a zigzag stitch all around, and I used white just so you could see it, for the video, otherwise I'd use black. But that's the back of it. I actually like the depth of it. So I think instead of flipping it in to cover those seams, I think I'm just gonna finish and zigzag, serge the edge of that seam inside to finish it off, and just leave it like that at the top. I think it's a nicer look. I think it'll be more comfortable too. So let me know what you guys think. So on to the hemming. Okay, so moving on to the serger, I'm using the Juki MO654 DE model, and I've had this one for probably about 3 years or so. I'm just gonna go in and finish off my seams, and this is the actual shoulder seam here. And again, I'm using the white thread just so you can see it. I probably would use black, if of course it were for somebody else, or if it were for sale. But it's just for me. Just want to make sure you keep checking underneath to make sure you don't have your fabric bunched up. Sorry, that camera just keeps sliding there, guys. Hopefully that'll hold better. Bear with me. Sewing and filming at the same time. And gotta be a little careful going underneath that armhole. Sometimes it gets a little stuck. Alright, so we're gonna do the same thing to both of those arms, so that just kind of lets you see what that finished area looks like on the inside. And that's the neck on the inside. And let's see what that arm looks like, because you don't want, that homemade look to your sleeve. You want everything to be nice and pucker free. So if there's a little white poking through, I do apologize for that, guys, but we don't. So that's our sleeve. So just everything, it's just nice and neat. No puckers in the front, no puckers at the back. And again, it's not like a real sleeve cap that was eased in, it's just jersey, but you still want it to be nice. But isn't that cute? I'm gonna do the same thing on the other one and finish the insides of my sleeves and do the hem, and that is it. Okay guys, so this is the finished long sleeve tee that I had here. Just critiquing myself here. I think the fit, in terms of the bodice, it's pretty good. I didn't add any additional ease to it, so it's basically what the bodice is. So if I had to redo it, I would definitely lower my pocket probably about an inch. I mean, I guess some pockets can be that high, but just seems a little high here. And I picked that floral detail to match the lounge pants that I'll be making to go with this. I think in terms of altering the top, I would go ahead and reduce that shoulder length about a 1/2 inch on both sides. I did go in and kind of take the excess seam allowance away, but I probably should have done a little more. But in terms of the ease under the arm, that's really comfortable, feels really well. I'm just wondering, in terms of that right side of the sleeve, maybe I could have tried, you know, easing in that sleeve cap a little bit more. I usually don't with jersey, it's not necessary. Or just go back and tweak the pattern to make sure that that sleeve cap matches the circumference, you know, of the armhole. I did it a couple of times and I thought it was fine, but that could be it. Sometimes it's just troubleshooting. But in terms of the fit, everything looks good. Underneath, let you see, I wasn't able to show that earlier, but that's kind of finished. I chose white, you know, so you could kind of see that. And I just did a little floral detail with my sewing machine around here because I did not change the top thread out. I was using the white, and of course I had the bobbin white, so everything was coming out as white. So I was like, you know what, I don't really want it to be a straight stitch that's white on this jersey. Sometimes that looks a little wonky and not as straight. So I just went ahead and did a little decorative top stitching around the sleeves there. But everything else looks good. Again, it's just loungewear, you know, to wear around the house after I have the hip surgery done. So keep watching and I'll share the pants and the other outfits later in the week. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit that like button, send me your comments, and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. Have a great day. Bye.